Today on Hearts of Heroes, an intense storm threatens Dallas, Texas with a menacing forecast.
The news was talking about possible tornadoes and hail.
Overnight tornadoes raking the land.
It started getting loud, glass breaking, trees cracking.
Plus, a 160-year-old church goes up in flames.
So I pulled up on the scene. I saw a heavy fire in the rear of the church.
Danger can often hit without much warning, but rescuers are always ready for whatever shows up.
The strongest tornadoes can have wind speeds up to 300 miles per hour. Cars get tossed, homes thrown from their foundation. But even at half that, 150-mile-per-hour winds and an EF3 can be horribly devastating.
And that's what happened in one small Texas community. But thanks to some fast-acting responders and medical heroes, survivors lived to tell it all.
Dallas, Texas, this iconic city in the heart of the Lone Star State, does everything bigger.
We have everything here. There are ranches that are close by for horseback riding. There are lakes. We have football. We have everything here. It's a very, very good community.
But Fire Station 37 Lieutenant Ed Mannon knows that this metropolis of millions has one less than enviable item on the list. Dallas is in Tornado Alley.
We do have them. They haven't hit in Dallas too much, but they've seemed to started happening more frequently in this area.
And one Sunday night in October of 2019 would bring several tornadoes. One of the hardest hit areas, a Dallas suburb called Preston Hollow.
I think it's the most harrowing experience I've ever been through.
For Philip Devlin, his wife Tina, and daughters Courtney and Aaron, the day started with some challenges.
Tina and I had gone to church for a baptism for a colleague, and coming out of church, my wife broke her foot. So we spent part of the day in the emergency room.
We got home about noon, and I finally emerged from having my foot up above my heart for about 5 hours.
Over at Station 37, fire department teams were well aware that severe storms were about to hit Dallas.
The news was talking about having bad weather coming through. They did say some stuff that could be possible tornadoes and hail.
But as the Devlins casually watched football, neither heard news reports to take shelter until Tina's phone lit up with a call from her youngest daughter, Erin.
I'd seen the lightning outside. They had said there's a tornado warning. It's at the tollway in Royal Lane, and they live on Royal Lane. And so I've said, it's right on top of you.
Right at that point, the power went out, and her phone call dropped.
Tina rushed to the interior hallway as Philip ran to close some blinds.
Within a minute, it started getting loud. I could hear glass breaking, trees cracking. As I was coming back to join my wife, the roof fell in on the ceiling in the living room. And as I dove into the hall, the chimney blew off.
Guys, this is no joke. Tornado in Dallas. Holy cow.
In that split second, Tina and Philip were under siege.
When or if facing a tornado, experts say that if you can't get to a basement or cellar, the safest place is a small interior room on the lowest level.
I couldn't put any weight on my foot, so I crawled into that closet. I peeked out the door, and the ceiling was completely gone. All I saw was sky.
It was nothing but chaos, flying debris, and I just hunkered down. She wasn't anywhere near me, but I could hear her screaming.
Once it started coming across the news, I started frantically sending text messages and phone calls. Nothing was going through.
In that chaos, daughter Courtney's cell phone had recorded an eerie message from Tina.
Courtney! Hearing the sheer terror in my mom's voice, I was 100% sure life as we knew it had changed in that moment.
Both daughters rushed to get to their parents.
To take off having no idea what to expect and feeling so powerless, we don't anticipate this is ever going to happen.
As quickly as the destruction hit, there was suddenly quiet and a skeleton of a house with the Devlins trapped inside.
My wife was on the other side of a door in a closet. I found her The door was blocked. I had to force my way into that room. I got her out of the closet into the hall where I was.
I looked up and the ceiling was cracking where we were laying, and I said, I think we need to get out of this hallway because we may lose that ceiling. So then we crawled up to the front entry.
We went to the front foyer, and I forced the door open, and when I did, I saw a 10-foot high pile of debris.
Coming up, Dallas fire crews have their hands full, rescuing people in multiple twisters.
One had already touched down. That's when we started noticing that there's some damage up in our area also.
But first, something to keep you safe.
There's an old saying, expect the unexpected. This especially applies to natural disasters, since they often strike when you least expect them.
For example, if you're not at home when a flash flood hits, always follow the same safety guidelines wherever you are. Get to higher ground and be prepared to evacuate, if told to do so.
Regardless of where you are, safety precautions are there to protect you. Be smart and be safe.
The night sky in Dallas, Texas was a swirl of danger.
There it is, tornado on the ground, there we go, tornado ripping through Dallas.
At least 10 tornadoes, including an EF3, had touched down in October of 2019.
I think our first run came in about 9:30, and that's when we knew it was on the other side of town where we usually don't respond to, and we started heading that way.
Lieutenant Madden was dispatched to the north where a twister had passed through, but as the team tried to drive out, they were stopped at Preston Hollow.
We didn't make it to the other town. We got stopped due to debris and the streets and all the damage and stuff, so we had to stay where we were at and search and rescue there.
Even rescue teams were stunned by what they saw in the wake of the 17-mile path of that tornado.
A lot of damage everywhere. People walking around trying to figure out what was going on, what they needed to do. We just started leapfrogging to search each house and do the best we could do at that time.
Luckily for Tina and Philip Devlin, who were trapped inside their home, Madden and his team arrived just in time.
I had a little flashlight, and I was blinking at them and said, help, help, and one of them quickly came up to the door and said, is anybody injured? And I said, my wife has a broken foot, not attributable to the storm, but she's immobile. And they said, we'll take care of that.
When a home is destroyed by a natural event like a tornado, search and rescuers arrive and often put themselves in harm's way to get victims out. It's a job not suited for the faint of heart or weak of body.
As soon as they came in, it was just a peace that came over me. I was still shaking, and the fireman kept saying, now relax, relax, just please relax.
Because of her injured foot, rescuers had to devise a plan to lift Tina out of the rubble. They used the tried and true tag team method.
We had 2 guys carry her to the front door, another 2 guys grab her from there and lower her down the porch, and another 2 guys carry her from there to the front yard.
I knew that I had these strong, compassionate men trying to save my life and get me out of there.
Neither Tina nor Philip were injured in the forceful chaos, and for their daughters, Courtney and Erin, that was the greatest miracle of all.
It was surreal. I came up here and I saw Mom laying on the driveway. I mean, the car was probably still moving when I just jumped out and ran up. Your brain's not thinking, but your feet are just moving.
To put my own eyes on them to realize that, like, they are here, they are okay. I even, like, checked my dad over and I was like, let me see all your arms, your legs. Like, do you have any cuts? Did you fall?
Then, the next day, reality set in. The Devlins had lost their home.
I never really cried or anything until I looked at it in the daylight. And it is just really hard to look at these things. This was our favorite room in the house.
They were not alone. Other houses in Preston Hollow were leveled. And amazingly, no one lost their lives that night. Crews were right there throughout the night helping victims.
I think there's at least 15 to 20 houses we went through that night on both sides of the street to make sure everybody's all right. From the time we started searching, we were there for a good 3 or 4 hours before we were relieved from that incident and dispatched to other spots in the city to go help.
As Preston Hollow continues their rebuilding process, survivors and first responders gathered to discuss what they went through on that fateful day.
This department came running. When everybody else is running out, they're running in.
You always wonder if there's your Superman that's going to be there when you get in a really horrible event, and these were our Superman.
You can hug them.
When everybody's running out, you guys run in. And I think that is so brave and courageous. And I just love you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Give it out.
Thank you for everything that you do. My little piece to add is that until I got the actual call from her saying that at least one of my parents and then both my parents were okay, there was a period of time in which I thought I'd lost them both. And as soon as I heard that y'all were there, I felt calm. We were in the right place, right time, but I think there was a higher power that had you there. So thank you.
Yes.
That's good.
Thank you so much.
And if I may, Phil, what would you like to say? Because obviously, there you were, worried about your wife, and all of a sudden you see these guys showing up.
I can't tell you how much it means to us that they walked into that house not knowing. Me not knowing whether or not Tina was even alive until I pushed through that door to get to her. So,
Here we have 4 people obviously so grateful for what you guys do every day.
I think firefighters or police officers, we don't take, if we have the opportunity to be with our families, we're going to be with our families. And don't waste the opportunities to show how much we care and love them. So when we do go to work, if something does happen, hopefully it doesn't, then we've done everything we possibly can. It's just part of life. It's just different that our job requires us to get on these trucks and go do something to help other people. And we sign up for it. That's what we do.
And thank your first responders. Don't pass up the opportunity to do that, because you'll need them one day, I promise.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming up, firefighters rush to save a 2-century-old church.
You could see smoke coming from the top of the steeple. Right away, I was thinking, oh no.
Fire can start in any building in an instant and then rapidly spread. And when they rage, they risk not only lives, but sometimes spiritual property.
In 2020, flames erupted in a historic New York church, threatening to destroy everything inside. Firefighters had a race to save the building and in turn save their town's history.
Newburgh, New York is located on the Hudson River about 60 miles north of Manhattan. From its Victorian neighborhoods to its centuries-old architecture, it's a town steeped in American history.
The city of Newburgh is an incredible collection of buildings, houses that were built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and it's just an intriguing place to live as you drive down every street and see beautiful houses with architecture from days gone by.
The city of Newburgh was one of the stops for General Washington during the American Revolution. He had lived in the Hasbrook House. This was a jewel of the Hudson River for many years.
Even Newburgh's fire department reaches way back in time.
The fire department itself has been around for over 200 years. So the city itself and the fire department has a very long history.
In fact, the fire department still uses old-time pole boxes that are located throughout the town to alert them whenever there's an emergency.
The box alarm system was the way that 100 years ago people were able to notify the fire department of a fire in their area. And basically, it's a telegraph system that when you pull the hook, it notifies the fire department. When that alarm comes in, that number is placed on a ticker tape. We're able to read that tape and know which box it is, and we're able to respond there.
But when it comes to history and architecture, the city's true centerpiece is the Calvary Presbyterian Church. It's a beautiful cathedral that was constructed pre-Civil War.
In 1884, Thomas Edison installed lights on the top of all these columns, and it was to show investors about this new invention called electric light.
And they still actually have 2 rings of lights that are there representatively to show people what that would have looked like back in the day.
Being a hub of both worship and charitable outreach, the Calvary Church has always been an important fixture in Newburgh.
We have been a church that has been very much a part of the community, but I think over the last several years, we've extended ourselves beyond the threshold of the doors.
This church is more than just a building to the community. It's an icon representative of their vast and incredible history. Without it, much of their history could be lost forever.
At around midnight on March 4th, 2020, firefighters got the call. The church was on fire.
So I pulled up on the scene. I saw a heavy fire in the rear of the church on the north side of the newer section of the church.
You could see smoke coming from the top of the steeple. And I could see the fire coming through the roof at the rear of the church.
Coming up, the fate of the Calvary Church is in the hands of heroic firefighters.
We needed to put it out before we lost the most historic portion of the building.
But first, another safety tip.
If a fire breaks out in your home or business, do you know what to do?
The rule is simple. Get out, stay out, then call 911. Also yell fire to alert others of the danger. Get away from it fast. Fire doubles in size every 2 minutes.
Make it a habit to remember those simple steps, because a simple routine could mean the difference between having gratitude or having regret.
Around midnight on March 4th, 2020, the historic Calvary Church in Newburgh, New York, went up in flames. Firefighters were immediately dispatched, and when they arrived, they knew that they had a huge job ahead of them.
It's a very, very prominent church throughout the community. It's been around for a very long time.
With the fire already raging, they had to come up with a game plan to stop it from spreading.
We had a forced entry to get in, and the plan of attack was to try to minimize the fire from getting into the older section of the church, the sanctuary, so that we could possibly stop and put it out before we lost the most historic portion of the building.
Reverend J. Edward Lewis got word of the fire and rushed to the church where he met the fire captain.
I see windows being broken out from the fire department. I still see several fire companies outside. I said, I just want to know about, the status of the fire. He said, well, the fellowship hall is burning pretty good, but we're trying to hold it off from the sanctuary.
Firefighters fought the blaze for hours, and finally they were able to quell the flames and save the main and oldest section of the building.
We were able to contain the fire for the most part in the new section of the building. Although there was some extension to the second floor, we did keep it in the one main room.
Still, the damage was extensive.
As I walked into the church after the fire, there was water, debris everywhere. So it was 3 or 4 inches of soggy mess with all the books and clothing, and it was obvious that there had been a great fire in that space.
Many people don't realize that it's not just the flames that can cause harm to a building. Smoke damage, debris, and even the water from the fire hoses need to be cleaned up after an event like this.
Our sponsor, Belfour, was brought in to take care of the cleanup and restoration.
Anytime you go into a building that has had a major fire like this, it's devastating. The building is soaking wet from the firemen. It is black, it's dark, it smells. The debris is all over the floor.
The team immediately got to work.
We cleaned the whole church, cleaned the pews. We had to set up scaffolding, clean the roof system, the trusses, and then we started on the reconstruction of the fellowship hall.
There was a silver lining to the tragedy. The Calvary Church is not only being restored, it's also being updated and modernized.
All of the lights in this space have been replaced with LED bulbs so that we can be brighter and dimmable and much more energy conscious. And we're realizing that we can provide Wi-Fi through the building, which was unheard of when the building was built. So we will be technologically up to date as we find a way to provide resources to the community.
There is something of the blessing. There's a blessing that will come out of the ashes. And I firmly believe that.
The fact that the firefighters were able to rescue this historic landmark was a blessing in itself.
I spoke to the fire chief and said, what we want to do when we come back to worship, we want to have a day of honor for firefighters. And I think I saw tears come to his eyes.
Talk about heroes. To me, that term's overused, but When you're a fireman going into a burning building, you're a hero.
Disasters are inevitable.
But one thing we can be sure of, there will always be brave heroes there to save the day.
Thanks for joining us here on Hearts of Heroes. We hope to see you next time.